Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leha, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
Hi, I'm Don McLaughlin. I'm a candidate for House District 80, which consists of Webb County, Uvalde County, Dimmitt County, Zavala County, Frio County, and Atascosa County. I'm also a small businessman, and I know what it takes to run a small business. And for too long, we've had too much government regulation coming into our small business and making it tougher and tougher for us to survive and get by. And that's one of the things I hope to change. Small business is the backbone of the state of Texas, and we need to make sure it thrives and that they have the support they need in government and less government regulation.
We're back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón, and I'm here with a good martial artist from the Chicago area, Illinois area, Grandmaster Moore. We're going to talk about the commonalities of martial arts in the different cities across the states. Is there really a common plane, or do they differ? Good morning. How are we doing today?
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
Good. They started off right.
Well, I know that feeling. I know. I woke up, every time you wake up this side of the earth, you're in good shape, you know? This side of the dirt.
So how's the Illinois area? How's it right now, the weather? Cold?
It's been a really hot summer. The summer's been really warm, but right now it's pretty rainy. We're experiencing the after effects of whatever hurricane was just in Florida. You know, it creeps up and hits us about 3 or 4 days later. You know, of course, it's not a hurricane anymore, but we get a lot of rain and we get some storms. So it's been interesting.
Absolutely. We get the same thing but we do get hurricanes. We're about 150 miles from the coast, but we get some hurricane winds, not that much, but we'll get some. We'll feel it. But we're right there in the Gulf, so we'll hit whatever hits on the Gulf, whether it's Houston, we'll end up with rain. If it's on the Mexico side, we're going to end up with rain. So we get that in August, September. But it's been hot. You know, we're here 107, 105, and it's been like that since April. It's been a long summer.
That's hot. Yeah. I know. I don't care if it's a humid heat or a dry heat. It's hot. 107 is 107. It's hot no matter what.
It's not humid. No, it's like a microwave. You know, you just go outside, just burn from the inside out. It's like and some be rare in 5 minutes, but here you're well done. You know, so
pretty quickly, right? I know. So I'm pretty much at the pretty much where the Ohio River and the Mississippi River meet. So we get a lot of moisture in that way, but it's, you know, it is what it is.
Awesome. Let's touch base because, you know, we've been talking for a while now, and I always like to figure out what's going on with the martial arts. And a lot of times in the martial art world, martial arts grows in spurts, sometimes because of fads, you know, in the 80s, the ninja fad. And
of course,
then and down the line right now, we have the MMA fad and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fad. And everybody kind of jumps onto that because they want to keep their schools open. I understand the business, but I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about why people join your school or go to your training or looking for martial arts, and what are those reasons in your area comparison? Maybe they're the same ones.
Typically what we're seeing right now is a lot of people are looking for self-defense, of course. People need to be able to defend themselves, especially in the current climate, in the current political climate of the country, because there's a lot of crime and there's a lot of drugs floating around in the area. But then on top of that, there's also the mental health quotient of it too. A lot of people are suffering from mental health issues because of the coming out of COVID, because of a lot of the uncertainty in our economy right now, and people are looking for a way to kind of ground themselves and get themselves back together and get their psyches kind of put back together, so to speak. You know, so that's what I find a lot of issue with. So one of the things that I teach anyway, that I offer for the schools that teach under me, is a system of Tai Chi Qigong. And a lot of people don't realize Tai Chi is a real martial art. Tai Chi is not just something that a bunch of elderly Chinese people do in the park. Tai Chi is a real martial art. Deep down at its core, it's really a powerful, powerful system, powerful Kung Fu system. And beyond that aspect of it, though, the health aspect, the health element of Tai Chi is unbelievable. You know, the how it brings the community together, and it helps with alleviate stress hormones, and it helps, you know, build serotonin in your brain, and it's so healthy for you in every way imaginable, both on an Eastern level and a Western level of consciousness. You know, it's a fascinating system, and I think that's, at the moment anyway, and I'm not looking at fads or anything like that, but at the moment, that's kind of the direction I see martial arts steering. Martial art is steering to where people need it to be, to where Americans need it to be right now, rather than just, you know, hanging up a shingle and saying, hey, I teach Taekwondo, which of course I do. But beyond that, there needs to be more responsibility of the martial arts instructor. The martial arts school bears a community responsibility. You know,
I get your rationale, where you're coming from. Martial arts has to be back to what it was supposed to be.
Exactly.
And most people did martial arts for one main reason. The health benefits were secondary. The first one was I have to be able to defend myself. And right now, across the system and across the systems here in the United States, that level of can you really defend yourself in the street has gone very low. There's very few systems that are actually street ready, even though people put the names out there: tactical, combative, whatever, and advanced and newly improved and all this other stuff in front. There's only certain systems that are really street ready. And, and they've been like that for the last 100 years and 100 years before that. And I think now people are seeing that. I think now the people, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting people that have gone around to different schools, have looked around, and they want to learn how to fight again. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to put it this way. I hate to use that term, because sometimes fighting, even though we teach pugilism, that's basically the core of it. But with that comes the health benefits, the stretching, the strength, all the other attributes with it, correct? But the essence is that. And right now, with the situation that we have, the new gangs that are spurting out across.
Yes.
A lot of people, right? A lot of people are searching for a way to self-defense. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, especially here in Texas, want to get a gun just to protect themselves. Well, I tell them this: if you can't punch somebody in the face, there's no way you're going to pull the trigger. So you have to understand that. But they want the microwavable chat. So they're considering that. Go ahead.
I'm a firearms instructor as well. But I know that it takes training. I mean, I'm not going to recommend somebody comes in, a mom, you know, that's got 2 little kids that wants to protect her kids at the mall or whatever. She's going to come into me and say, hey, how do I protect people? How do I protect myself and my children? I'm not going to say go out and buy a gun. A gun is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I believe in it. But at the same time, the amount of training that it takes to accurately and adequately utilize a gun is equivalent to like training in martial arts. And again, I teach several systems that are pretty much street ready, from Hapkido to Wing Chun Kung Fu. These are styles that are powerful styles that are almost immediately street ready, as you put it, that are almost immediately ready to use in self-defense. And
Yes.
getting back to the health aspect of it, a lot of people don't even realize that in Hapkido, at very high level of Hapkido, 5th degree black belt, in fact, pretty much the entire basis of the 5th degree black belt curriculum is the health benefit of martial art, is turning it back around to teaching health to yourself and to your students, to the people around you, and to your community. And that's how we're giving back to our community, by providing this help. But again, going back to self-defense, there's aspects of different systems that are dedicated to self-defense. And don't misunderstand me. I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or I teach a version of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu I call ground defense. I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the politics of the organization are heavy. And I love it. I love it as a competitor. The problem is, I'm not going to recommend somebody grab somebody and grapple with them in the middle of the street or the middle of a parking lot and go to the ground, because you don't know what they're wearing, you don't know what you're wearing, you don't know how many other people are around. There are so many things that take this incredible martial art and make it something that you need to be careful about. And again, it's a range that I think for many years was misunderstood. I think it's a very important range, but at the same time, it's not everything, if that makes sense.
I get you. Here we have a thing, we call it a Laredo shoe shine. You fall to the ground, and the guy across the bar that had nothing to do with it is going to come up to you and going to kick you because you're in the ground.
And once he's going to fall down and wiggle his legs and say, "Your turn,"
And that's what happens. And people underestimate the third attacker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And once a frenzy starts, and unfortunately, there's video upon video that teaches you that happened Friday, Saturday night across the United States and across the globe, that somebody pulled their cell phone and recorded a fight. Somebody goes down to the ground and is getting their head kicked with a soccer ball. And people do not understand that. Now, street fighting, I do not advocate it. It's not that everybody needs to go out there and fight. No, I don't want that. I don't want anybody to do that. But people need to understand the violence of it, and have to understand the immediate chaos and how to control that, and how to be aware of the effects after that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a moral, and there's a spiritual, and there's a legal ramifications. I teach all of that in my styles as well. In my organization, in fact, I teach my instructors under me to be aware of the moral and ethical and legal responsibility that they have when they teach their students. It's like there are certain techniques I won't teach to children. There are techniques that I'll teach adults, but I won't teach it to children, because I can't, in my own mind, allow a child to go to school with another child and know how to do certain things.
Absolutely. And the legal ramifications is whether or not you're defending yourself in the street. Right now, the police come and you're not going to beat the ride. You're going to be taken downtown.
Exactly.
And and I tell my students, I tell everybody else that when I go around, I go, if you do not have $30,000 to throw away, out there and try looking for, be a power drinker at a bar and trying to, I'm the big one, because all of a sudden you're going to end up in a nice little ride with a little siren, and you're going to need to get a bailsman to bail you out. You're going to have to get an attorney to get you out of that process. Or not, it was your fault, or you started or not. That's the problem that we have right now, is that whether or not it's self-defense, you're not going to beat the ride.
Right. No, that's exactly true. That's exactly true. And that's what I teach my students as well. Be prepared to, you get into an altercation, be prepared to answer the police. Be prepared to answer when people pull out their cell phones. Be prepared to answer when witnesses go, I saw him do this. I saw them do that. I saw this happen. Because you're going to have 10 or 15 different witnesses around, and everybody's going to have a different story. The only people that are going to have the same story are the people that are recording out on the phone, and they're not always going to have the same story. So, the reality of the matter is, it's the witnesses, you're playing for the witnesses as well. You know what I mean? It's one of those circumstances. There's going to be witnesses watching, and you have to be able to defend yourself not only on the street but also in a courtroom.
I'm glad you brought that out, and because that is a thing when you have these altercations. You need witnesses. and everybody cry wolf, and crying wolf sometimes gets other person arrested.
Right.
And you need to understand the difference. And I'm not saying the police are bad. Please do not get me wrong. The thing is that they're going out there to do a job, and what happens is they're going to pick both people up because they're not court and jury. They're just going to pick both up, and they're going to take you downtown. You deal with it.
Sort it out there.
Right, and that's the problem that we have now. And the same thing happens with kids in high school and junior high and elementary. Kid is turns around, has had enough, turns around and defends himself. All of a sudden, that child is dealing with juvie and alternate school and so forth because they're going to go after him for defending himself.
Exactly.
And there was a case here in Laredo last year. 2 guys in high school get in a fight at the mall on a Saturday, go back to school on Monday and get arrested by the school police because they got in a fight in school on Saturday.
Yeah.
Which is what is school police do with, you know what I'm saying, has nothing to do with this, so
it wasn't on school grounds. That should not happen.
they should not have jurisdiction, but they claim they're peace officers, and that's a type of issues that we're having now. People are afraid to defend themselves because of those consequences, but yet people need to learn to defend themselves now more than ever.
Well, that's the beauty of Hapkido. The beauty of Hapkido is you can defend yourself and apply pain compliance on someone. Let them go after you've done your technique. Let them go. There's no blood. Nobody's got a broken arm. Nobody's got a broken face. Let them go, and 5 minutes later, they feel perfectly fine. They're walking around. When the police show up, they say, hey, what happened? Say, this guy, we got into an altercation. And the guy says, are you injured? Well, no. And the officer says, are you injured? No. Nobody's hurt. You were just in an altercation. Okay. Well, both of you are walking away perfectly fine, even though you've applied your martial art technique. And that's the real secret to it, is applying the technique without causing visible injury and harm.
Now, due to the issues that we're having now, what age groups are you seeing now come and call and come to the school and try to join? They're looking for what age groups?
I am actually getting a lot of kids anywhere from, say, 4th grade up through high school that are running into problems at school. Or I'm seeing people come in and say, hey, I have this issue, or I'm having that issue, or there's, certain kids are being mean to me, or, and one of the things that I do offer as well, that when I teach people, teach the kids anti-bullying technique and how to deal with a bullying situation, is we also have to bear in mind there's cyber stalking, there's cyber bullying, and nobody is really equipped to handle that right now, especially kids. The more these kids, the younger they start getting put on Facebook and having their own tablets and iPods and iPads or whatever it is, the more access other people have to them. And I'm not even talking about predators as much as I'm talking about other kids being bullies. And
no, you're correct.
It's a common thing. Kids are being bullied day and night. Even, it used to be, if you were bullied in school, when I was a kid, if somebody bullied me in school, or I got into an altercation with somebody in school, I would go home and it was cool. I went home. Home was the sanctuary. I went and saw my mom. I saw my dad. Everything was cool while I was at home. I didn't have to face the problem again until the next day. Whereas now, kids get home and it's right there. They turn on the computer. They carry their Chromebook with them to school and home all the time. They have their Chromebooks on them, and they never get away from the bully. They never get away from the incident. They never get away from the problem. And I think that's a lot of the stress level that these kids are under right now. The stress, fight or flight hormone, these kids are always in a state of fight or flight. And that's just not healthy.
No, you're correct. When I first heard the word cyberbullying was years ago. About MySpace had just come out. And there was in here in Laredo where there was a serial rapist. Okay. Mm-hmm. Curtis Silva, the founder of the Garden Angels, came down and we were talking, very great individual. And we were talking about it. And he goes, Paul, now we have something called cyberbullying. And he was the first person that brought it out. And he said, and that's gonna hit the ground running so fast, people are not gonna know what to do with it. And I remember talking to him about that because nobody knew. I mean, some of the district attorney prosecutors were there. I remember the sheriff of Webb County was with them, and they were all we were astonished about what was going to end up happening. And right now we have that problem. Exactly. And he was the first one back in 2008, 2008, I believe. It was when he mentioned it, or 7 when that was happening. I think it was 2000 that winter. Okay. And what occurs with that, and I say this to everybody, a child that's under 17 and under, it says Facebook, are you 18 and over? How can a kid that's 12 years old have a TikTok, an Instagram, a Facebook? And parents need to understand that, and parents allow that to occur. And parents should not even be there, period. They should be monitoring that left and right.
Exactly. We do that. My fiance and I do that with the kids, is we're constantly watching what they're doing online. You have to monitor that. It has to be a full-time job, keeping track of the kids and keeping the kids safe away from what's out there, away from the cyber attacks, the cyber bullying, or the cyber world in general. I mean, there's so much ugliness that happens online that kids are not they're not old enough or mature enough to cope with. You know, when you turn around, you look at the graphic content of video games now, how realistically graphic they are. And kids are not equipped to deal with that. It's one thing, I mean, if you're a 20-year-old man or you're a 20-year-old woman, whatever, and you join the military and you go to war, you see all of this kind of thing, but you're not joining the military before you're 18. It's not like you're 12 years old and joining the military. You know, these 12-year-olds are being bombarded with images that only men and women in war see. Only people in war see these horrible, horrific images. And now we're exposing our 10, 11, 12-year-olds.
You're correct. You're correct. And they're desensitizing them.
Desensitizing, yes.
And that's what's going on. And people do not understand. We're at, how can I say it? We're in a constant battle against evil that's out there. And unfortunately, the internet, cyberspace, it's huge. It's I say about 80% of it is somebody's trying to screw somebody over, whether with a scam or a financial scam or trying to steal your money. And it's onward. It's every day. And people need to be aware of that. And that I would say about 80%. That's my opinion. I don't know what the stats are, so don't, it might be less, might be more, who knows. But I think that's something that we should look into because that's what's happening right now. That's what's happening.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. The cyberspace, the internet out there, the social media all coming together all at the same time is causing just a storm, a maelstrom of problems that are landing squarely, number one, on our society, but number two, on our children. You know, when we have circumstances where the school districts are trying to raise our children, where the schools want to raise the children outside of the parents, when the schools make decisions that only the parent and the child together should be making.
You're correct.
What sex are you? What is your outlook on yourself? What is your outlook on the world? All that's being decided by the school rather than decided in the home where it should be. I'm sorry. It's just, let people live. You are who you are, and that's all understood. I get that. But don't take it out of the home. Don't take it away from the parents' responsibility.
Don't attack our youth. If you're over 18 and you want to do whatever you want, that's your prerogative.
Right.
And who are we to judge, right? But when you attack our children, that's a different story. And I see that. We have school to prison pipeline districts that whatever you do, the child's going to be either in an alternative school or in juvie, and they're going to go down the line. So when they're 18 and they're 17 years old and they're a senior and something happens, maybe they get into a fight, maybe they're tardy over enough, and all of a sudden it's called a truancy case. All of a sudden that child is no longer going to juvenile. He's going to go down to the county jail. And so now he became a number within the penal system. And
I know it all too well.
And that's what's happening in our schools now. it's that lacks of we can do what we want. It's that we have to get back either, and it's right now in a crucial in a crucial point. And I get it. I mean, it's not hard to see. All you have to do is take a look, and you're going to end up finding it.
Right.
And people right now are overseeing some other things because they're caught up in trying to make ends meet and trying to raise a child and trying to pay for the mortgage, pay for the car, pay for everything else, and
everything, especially with prices going up, the cost of living going up insurmountably.
And then so people start looking at that and start forgetting what's going on outside, and that's when they take advantage of everybody.
Right.
And sometimes it's not that they're trying to take advantage; it's because sometimes they're trying to fit the norm, which what is a norm, or trying to fit this imaginary norm into reality because they do not want to point the finger at because there's a very small group of people that are yelling and screaming and compared to the masses.
That's true.
And then once that occurs, and all of a sudden things change. But you're absolutely correct. Now, here's my last question. Martial arts have always been a fad, right? We've always seen that. And
yes.
We see that. It's they know it happens. A lot of people want to fight in the ring. Now, you're seeing this
right.
surge of wanting to learn boxing, wanting to learn kickboxing,
right,
Thai boxing, Savat. They're trying in MMA. They want to go into the ring, but very, very few instructors have actually been in the ring for the ring, understand the ring savvy, but
right.
yet you have a mass of people doing it. How can you tell those individuals out there to be careful in where they're getting it? Because I saw a video last night of a young girl, I believe it was in Brazil. They were just basically beating the shit out of her. And they were saying, oh, she's a warrior, she can do it. And the guy was going at her hard, like if he was fighting another man. And this was not a sparring session where you have a helmet or what have you. This was just a regular light sparring turned into a fight for survival. And the girl got beaten up in the video, and then they get her up and goes, oh yeah, you're part of the team. And I'm like, I'm against that, number one. But there's a difference. There's a difference. You know, sparring is I'm going to prepare you for a bout. You know what I'm saying?
Going back to the original part of your statement, I want to go back to the original part of your statement because I see something here, and I've been watching this for some time. If you pay attention to, again, the internet, YouTube, all this sort of thing, there's millions and millions of people out there trying to be famous. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be a pop star. Everybody wants to be an influencer on whatever social media point it is. So all of the kids, all of the people coming up, they want to do the same thing. They want to be the next Britney Spears. They want to be the next Katy Perry. They want to be the next whomever. And you're seeing the same thing with it relating to martial arts. I have people coming into my school that want to be the next, McGregor. People come into my school that want to be the next, whomever the warrior, the fighter of the day is on the UFC. That's who they want to be. They want me to teach them to be like so-and-so. Now, I'm certified to teach MMA, but I generally don't, because when I'm speaking to people about this, I'm like, listen, do you want to go fight in an MMA tournament? Want to fight in something like that? Or do you want to learn to defend yourself and defend your family and defend the people around you? Because that's my specialty. That's what I'm going to do. I could take you to the MMA and we could wrestle around in a ring and do all that, but honestly, what are the odds of, little Johnny or little Johnny teenager coming in here and in 3 months' time being offered a $10 million fight? It's not going to happen. What are the odds, however, of that same kid being in a position where he's walking down the road, he's walking downtown, walking down the street, he's in high school, and some other kid grabs him or some other thug grabs him and tries to A, kidnap him, B, take him away, tries to hit him, tries to accost him in whatever way. That's a much more likely scenario, in my opinion, than being offered, this is your fight card, so to speak. You know what I mean? And especially when we're dealing with women and children as well, because the amount of violence, the amount of these things that are being used against women, the amount of women that are being stolen, the amount of women that are disappearing, the amount of women that are being raped, the amount of women that, again, are being beat up, the amount of women that are being attacked by their boyfriends, their husbands, by strangers accosting them on the street is just insurmountable. It's just unbelievable the amount of pressure we're putting on women and children, not only to defend themselves, but to be mentally capable of being able to traverse that, being able to get around that. And it's just, again, I have no beef with fighting in the ring. I have no beef against boxing. I love boxing. In fact, I love kickboxing. I love watching MMA. But the truth is, I don't think it's a realistic goal. Don't get me wrong. There are some people out there that are destined to be rock stars, but for every Katy Perry that's out there, for every, I don't even know who's popular right now, but for every pop artist that has made it huge, there's got to be 10,000 or a million out there posting their little singing clips on Facebook or on YouTube that are trying to do the same thing, that are much better off learning to do something more productive with their talent.
No, you're correct. No, yeah, you're correct. There's a couple of things that, and I'll come back to the secondary, which you mentioned about women getting assaulted and everything else, because we'll talk about that. But we'll talk about the actual sparring and people making it as world champions or popular fighters or getting it. I'm going to just put boxing, because boxing is everywhere in the world, and that's the actual sport that people do most of.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because I don't care what town you live in, there's probably going to be somebody teaching boxing, and across the globe. Now, when you go professionally in boxing, most amateurs that go professional and become something, over 150 fights, amateur fights.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. There's some that'll be adequate. They'll probably have between 60 to 100. But you see a lot of these guys that go into the boxing ring. Maybe they had 5 amateur fights, and all of a sudden they become 18 years old, and their coach says, you know what, you're going to go into the boxing professional side of it. Now you're 18 or what have you. They stick them in there. They're very great at it for a little bit. They might beat 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of a sudden they get to their 8th or to their 10th bout, and all of a sudden they hit somebody and say, oh, we're going to fight this person that has 2 bouts or 3 bouts. He's just starting. We're going to take him, but they forget that person that's starting had 150 bouts underneath them or 200 bouts underneath them.
Exactly.
The person's clock, because they have all this experience behind it, and all of a sudden they just put somebody else out. Now, I'm not saying that you can't just start going into boxing. There's very few people that go into box professionally and become world champions.
Right.
Okay. The times have kind of ended, but in the time frame that we're in now, you take La Hoya had over 200 amateur fights. You take Orlando Canizales had over 175 amateur bouts. You know what I'm saying? So at those levels, expect that to occur. Mosley had over 200 amateur bouts before he became world champion, and a lot of people say, okay, I'm just going to do it because I had 3, I'm going to go professional, and now I'm going to go fight. It's a different story. You have to take care of your boxers. You have to know when they're going to go up there. And I've taught people both in the amateur arena, never taken anybody professionally. And we've produced many Golden Glovers. We produced, I remember taking 27 young guys and girls to the regional Golden Gloves, and we, over a period of 6 years, we came out with 24 Okay, only 3 didn't make it. So when you look at it, like, you look at it, you're like, okay, So you have to be able to take care of people. And you have gyms that have been teaching 20 years and they have one person that made golden gloves. It just depends on how you're trained and so on and so forth. But the care for the fighter, you're teaching somebody to defend themselves. You're teaching somebody to become this pugilist, this fighter, if you want to put it that way. That's basically what you're doing when you have a martial arts school. You have to be able to care for that person enough that they have to understand the basics of blocking, punching. Only because they're fast at throwing a punch doesn't make them fast enough to go into a ring and try it out. Understand what I think you get my drift.
I had a young guy come. I'm sorry. I had a young guy come to me one time. A young African American kid. Maybe he was 12 years old. I think he was 12, 13 years old. And this guy could punch like a man. He punched like a man. And he was awesome. Don't get me wrong. He was a great kid. But I was worried about him because here I am. I'm trying to take care of him as a martial arts instructor because the last thing I wanted, when he fired a shot, when he punched, when he hit in there, it was like a bullet from a gun. And once you make that punch and you hit that target, you can't take it back. Once you hit that and you injure someone that way, you can't take it back. And here's this 10, 12, 13-year-old black kid that he's going to get on the street, and if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And he's going to get into a problem one day, and he's going to pop somebody. Well, guess what? When the cops show up, who are they going to arrest? Who are they going to stick in jail? Who are they going to pin it on? It's going to be the young black kid. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I was trying to teach him how to defend himself without just automatically going for the kill shot, so to speak.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Now, the thing that you said about women, self-defense and teaching women, to me, it's the hardest point because most of the women that are going to get into an altercation, aggravated sexual assault and whatnot, it's usually somebody that they know.
Yeah.
So psychologically, it affects them to turn around and hit somebody. Okay, everybody thinks that you're going to be in a parking lot and this van's going to pull up and this guy with a ski mask is going to come out. Yeah, no,
it doesn't work that way.
It's usually somebody that they know, either an ex-boyfriend, a co-worker. Yes. So that psychological effect's going to be there.
Right.
And we as men, the men that are out there that are protecting their families and so forth, you have to be very vigilant. And you have to be vigilant on things like that. I tell this to my students. I'm teaching you. I teach my students just like if I teach my son.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to learn the correct way to do it. And so if they come in, somebody else comes in there, I'm going to teach them just the way he is. There's no favoritism. You're going to learn the way I was taught, and you're going to learn it. And a lot of people like that. A lot of people frown on that because there's no favoritism here where you learn. You're going to end up learning respect, and you're going to end up learning the craft as it should be done. And there's no circumventing of techniques or of rank, or you're my son, like in many schools.
Of course.
You're the next great Grandmaster Poopa, because you're 12 years old, and by the time you're 20 years old, you're going to be a 10th degree black belt. No.
Right? No way.
It ain't going to happen. There's no magical fairy that comes out in the middle of a fight and goes, shh, you just became a fighter. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't work that way.
And it goes from the schools that care about that.
Going back to the discussion about women and children, one of the things that I teach in Hapkido, this is a very important aspect of it. Typically in Hapkido, you see a lot of defense against a wrist grab or defense against a choke. Now, I always ask my students, how often does a man come up to another man and grab him by the wrist to defend him, so he would have to defend himself? Almost never. Men don't do that. However, it's a very common attack made against women and children. Men will walk up and they'll grab a woman by the wrist, they'll grab a child by the wrist or by the arm, and they say, hey, come with me. Hey, we got to come here, and they'll fight to get them in. Now, men need to learn the technique because, in my opinion, it's like a workbench. You have a workbench in your garage. that you get your tools together, you build something. That's your workbench. The wrist lock is your workbench for a man. But for women and children, it's actual technique. They have to learn how to escape. They have to learn how to counter. They have to learn how to do these things because, in truth, they're attacked that way. I've seen videos. I saw a video years ago of some little girl standing at an ATM in Florida, and some man walking up and just taking her by the wrist and walking away with her. And she didn't know him. Nobody knew who the guy was. The girl ended up being found dead in the swamp. And the thing about it is, she didn't know what to do. She panicked. She underreacted. She took her by the wrist and just walked away with her. And she just walked with him. And that's the thing. Children need to learn self-defense. Women need to learn self-defense. And a realistic line for a woman is a wrist grab, is a choke, is one of these kind of grabs, because like you said, it's going to be more likely not somebody jumping out of a van saying, hey, I want to take you somewhere. It's going to be a family member. It's going to be a friend. It's going to be a colleague. It's going to be somebody like that that's going to come over and take her by the wrist or take her by the arm or reach down into the bag or reach down and put his hand on her where he shouldn't, in a way to initiate that contact. And from that initial touch, from that initial grab, maybe it's not something that's going to happen from man to man typically, but it is going to happen to a woman. It is going to happen to a child. And that's where they need to be starting. That's where we need to start with them. Speaking pragmatically. No,
you're correct. Because that's going to happen. Most men are going to come up to either they're going to get a push, shove, or punch. Boom.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it. That's where it starts. That's the intro to the fight. For a woman, it's different. You know, for a woman, it's a grab. For a woman, it's a, hey, come with me. Or it's, hey, I'm going to push you down, which is a lot of the benefit of your jujitsu. When you push a woman on the ground and the guy's trying to get on top of her, jujitsu is king in that circumstance. But until they get to the ground, he's got to get away. I don't want to, in jujitsu, one thing we teach is pulling to guard. I will never pull somebody from a standing position to a guard on the ground. I never teach from a stand putting somebody in a position on the ground, because that's not the goal. The goal from a stand is to get away, is to deal with the circumstance, do what you got to do, get away, escape. Don't and worry about the guy with the cell phone recording you later. When you're on the ground already, if you're both already on the ground, yes, pulling to guard is important. Yes, getting into that position where you can do your technique is important, but not from a stand. You pull the ground when you're on the ground. You defend yourself, stand up when you're standing up. But just my opinion. But that's where my Buitron and Hapkido comes in.
You're correct on that. And I want to say this, folks, if you're listening to us, we're talking about the commonalities and what issues are needed within the communities from Illinois and from Texas. There is a lot of commonalities within the martial arts that is needed throughout, and people need, if they're looking for self-defense, you have to start looking for that, because that's what's coming through to the martial arts school doors. That's what they're looking for. And as a martial artist, as an instructor, as a business owner of a martial art, if that's a type of martial art that you're gearing for towards teaching people how to defend themselves, or you're advertising that,
right,
you have to be able to provide that service. Now, if you're advertising that you're a karate tournament point fighter and you're building teams and competitors with that, beautiful. If you're teaching that this is just kickbox aerobics fitness and has not and beautiful for that as well. You know, so there's a lot of niches within the martial art. We're talking about the schools that teach for the principle of self-defense.
Right.
And even we might have it outside on the advertisement that we teach self-defense, many schools do not.
They don't.
So that
not realistic self-defense. The difference, like we were just talking about, is realistic self-defense versus what the typical martial arts school thinks is self-defense. Like in Taekwondo, many years ago, I did 1,000,000 one-step sparring. Did 1,000,000 one-steps. And I ended up not teaching them so much anymore, because even though they're great at teaching technique, they don't teach adequate lines. They don't teach you adequately to get in and defend yourself. They're great for performance. They're great performance-based martial art, but they're not great for pure, true self-defense.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Now, we're running out of time, and I want to thank you because we had a great conversation over this subject matter that is frequently forgotten about in our industry. So
Yes,
we'll
sir.
take it from you. We'll wish you the best. Folks, if you're out there, how do we leave you? God bless you. You all stay safe. Until next time, much peace. Until next.
Kamsahamnida.
Have you ever wondered about what happens in a martial arts studio? Well, you start right away by setting goals, building determination, gaining focus, building skills, all while becoming more fit, gaining confidence, and learning self-defense. Buitron Academy is a school where attitude meets aptitude. So give us a call at 956-401-4868.